I'm a creative writer, and I spend a lot of time in a little room with a computer writing poems. If I'm lucky, a few people might read them if they get published. How do I have impact? How can I have impact beyond indulging my own creative urges? When the impact agenda first started to be introduced in my discipline, I will confess lots of us felt quite threatened by it. We found it difficult to see how we could fulfil the kind of real-world impacts that were being asked for. And so I'm really delighted that I've now had the opportunity to reflect on impact in my discipline and what it can actually mean and how it can actually be a really creative process rather than the unpleasant jolt that the word impact at first suggested to me. So I'm going to start at the end of the process, really. This is where I've got to, having reflected on my work, my research. And this is focused on Writing Lives, which is a local community-based storytelling project. And I think that's an important point to make, that impact can be very local and still be extremely valuable. Some impact, yes, will be global, but some can actually do great things locally. Now, I also must say I can't take the complete credit for all of these impacts. I've been involved in it, but I must also credit my colleagues, particularly Dr. Gaynor Bagnall, who works in sociology, and the wonderful Harriet Morgan-Shami, who works in what was the arts unit, who's really helped me here. So this was a real team effort. It wasn't just me that did this. But having looked at my research and what it supported, I've come out with the following 4 major impacts. So it's actually empowered local people and our local community to gain confidence in self-expression. We've managed to support a really wide range of other organisations in working with us to go on engaging people. What I'm really proud of is the listening and responsive model of participation, and Tracy's touched on this, that you have to be so careful that you don't just go in and do things to people. It's about working with people, and especially in an area like Salford, which has been identified as having social issues or areas of deprivation, you'll find that local people have been consulted to death. They're sick of researchers coming in and using them and then dropping them and moving on once they've got what they wanted. So we were really careful to make sure that there was ownership and participation. So we didn't pre-structure or impose what was going to happen. We set up something and we saw where it went and we asked people to get involved with that. And so the partnership has evolved and it's continuing to evolve beyond the initial scope of the research. So that's where we got to, and I'm really proud of that. But how did I get there? As I said, it's often difficult to link something like writing poetry with social impact or things that are of value to the wider community. So what you've got here are some of my pieces of research. So we've got some poetry, which, if I'm lucky, maybe 20 people might read on a good day in a journal. We've got some work on the process of creative writing. So in this case, it's gender in writing. How does gender affect creative process? And then I've got some more recent work that I've been doing on life writing, narratives of self-fashioning. And you can see there a conference presentation and then a paper in an international journal. Now, how does that get from a very small kind of peer readership, how does that become something much more valuable and much wider ranging? And I want to show you how these 4 pieces of research have informed and supported the outcomes that we started off with. So this all began in 2007 when, with colleagues in sociology, we bid for money to HEFCE, the Higher Education Funding Council for England. They had an urban regeneration programme and we bid for funding and we were successful. We got £60,000. And to start off with, my job was to design a community arts project. What would we do? How would we make something happen? And I realised that my understanding of poetry, both as a writer of poetry but someone who reads poetry and works with other poets, it was an expression of individual and communal relationships with things like history, identity and locality. And realising that I had an understanding of that and how that came about, Writing Lives became a supportive space in which participants could explore identity and community through creative practice, through creative writing. So that was the basic design of what we were going to offer. Very importantly, these participants were self-selecting. We took the time to build a relationship with the Broughton Trust, which has lots and lots of local contacts and does lots of things with local people. And through them, people were invited. We didn't target anyone in particular. We just said, we're having a creative writing workshop. We'll offer you some tuition in writing if you want it. We'll offer you a creative space in which you can come together and explore. And through no other reason than this is what it seemed to appeal to, the most people in the first groups were young mothers. And so my work on gender and its relationship with creative process was very useful there. How to set up a group, a working space that particularly supported young mothers in exploring issues that were of concern to them. So lots of things to do with shared experiences of parenthood, and also children's literacy came to the fore. And because the group was self-developmental, it was self-directed, we just supported those people in what they decided they wanted to do, we were actually able to commission a book artist who worked with the group, and the people in that group made books for their own children and read them to their own children. So we're already starting to get the promotion of literacy as an impact from doing this creative activity. And one participant said, I've never thought I could see it in black and white, a book I have done for my own son. And you see the impact on that person's self-esteem just through offering them that model of creative expression. And then as the groups progressed and they became more confident and also more skilled in creative expression, there's actually some really talented people working in these groups. Some of the participants expressed that they were really interested in identity and self-esteem, and that they wanted to test it out. They wanted to talk about their own experience, their own lives. This is what it's like for me. And here my work in autobiography and what I call praxical research, which is learning by doing. So in writing my own autobiographical work, I then observe and reflect upon the processes, and I can draw them out as strategies that will probably work for other people in attempting the same kind of thing. And so this research enabled us to offer the workshops, to position the workshops so that participants were well placed to find a voice, to gain agency over what's very challenging material often for lots of the people involved, and to express themselves without making themselves vulnerable. And that is so important in autobiographical practice, that people have the creative tools to express themselves without feeling uncomfortable, without feeling exposed or vulnerable. And one participant said, it was about me. I learned a lot about myself. It reaffirmed my feelings and passion for community work, and I now want to get a job in community work. So another impact that's starting to happen there is that people are actually moving into careers, into professional development as a result of what we were able to offer them. And here are some key impacts. Actually, we've got some numbers which I'm really proud of, that over 78 people have attended the creative writing workshops, because these have gone on this year as well. 89 people were involved in children's bookmaking activities. Creche facilities were provided, and I think that's so important as a participatory model, that people were not prevented from participating because they didn't have access to childcare. As I said, we started off very much with young mothers as a self-selecting membership, but as the groups grew and spread by word of mouth, as people said, this is great, you should join in, we also got older people, lots of multicultural, multinational memberships, people who have English as a second language, some people with literacy issues, and other people with various health issues as well. So it's become a really diverse constituency of participants. We know, and that maybe more than this, but that we know of 12 members of the group are now in paid employment, and over 50% of those original participants are now in other forms of study, be that unaccredited or accredited. Now, we can't claim that that's entirely down to what we offered, but I think there's a correlation there, that we've made people see what's possible and raise their aspirations. Also, although the university has kept a very low profile, and I'll talk about this in a moment, we haven't sort of gone in as the university and done things to people, but we have made our resources available to participants as appropriate. We've invited them onto campus for various events and things like that, and it's actually made people think that higher education could be something for them. one group member here saying they particularly enjoyed the visit onto campus to see the art gallery. And so that's making people think that maybe they can aspire to higher education. 2 former members are currently in higher education and 1 has become a qualified counsellor. So hopefully there an impact is that we are widening participation in higher education as well. Loads and loads of partnerships have been embraced. I won't go into all of them, but that's just some of the organisations who we have been in touch with and who have got in touch with us and have done various sub-projects or have come on board to help support what's going on. In particularly, the housing groups, Contour Housing Group, is actually sponsoring one of the writing groups, which is really good to see. One of the impacts has been that there's been lots of intergenerational interaction. People who would not otherwise have met have come together and worked creatively. And also, I'm really proud that the workshops and the evaluations of our activity, they are co-led by the participants themselves. So again, this is what Tracy's been saying, that you allow the participants to become your co-researchers. It's very much about sharing things. So really this means that participants are beginning to undertake leadership and mentoring roles within their community, and as one of them said, belonging to a group gives you a lot of confidence and you make friends in that way. So again, it's building social capital in places where it may not have been very strong. This is really important, this listening responsive model of participation, and this has evolved. Participants have told us what they want and how they want it to work. So participants self-select, there is absolutely no charge for attending, and there is no commitment to attend a particular number of sessions. You can dip in and out, you don't have to commit to any particular length of time. We also paid locally based writers as facilitators, so as well as putting some money into the local economy, it wasn't us as university researchers coming in and doing things, we were facilitating local writers to work with people in the way that they wanted to. The evaluation has been participatory, so there's been participant involvement throughout in the evaluation. There have been focus groups and steering groups that the participants have been on, again giving them extra skills, leadership roles and managerial roles. And very importantly, we as researchers, we only attend group sessions when we are invited to do so by the participants. It's very important that that's their space and we only come in when we're asked to do so. Something else that's really important is not ending abruptly with the research, not just dropping everybody and moving on when the initial funding runs out. So Writing Lives workshops have become embedded in the Broughton Trust programme. We've got several established groups, in fact 3 programmes now continuing to go on to find other sources of funding, and with attendance from self-selecting participants. That's really important that it goes on. It has a legacy beyond the end of the bid. And lots of other stuff there that I won't go into, but lots of other projects and funding things happening. And in particular, you can see that through the British Council, we have now started to have an international impact. So what started off as very local is now becoming much more international. And in fact, they've been working with an Israeli organisation to promote active citizenship. So lots of stuff happening globally there as well. And there's just some pictures of some of the beautiful books that participants have made to share with their own children. Each one is absolutely exquisite. It's a work of art. So just to finish then, the things that I've learned about impact is to be open-minded about how impact can be defined. Be imaginative, be creative in how you think about impact. Have a plan, have an idea of what you want to achieve, but allow things to grow and develop organically. Be open to opportunities, and I think that's what's been coming up in everybody's talks. Be open to unexpected opportunities, to links that you might not have thought of. Really consider sustainability beyond the scope of this particular piece of research. And also, I wish someone had said this to me when I was starting out, build impact into your research right from the beginning. It's much more difficult to go back and try and do it retrospectively. If you build it in from the start, so you're evaluating in the right way and you're measuring the right kinds of things, it's much easier, it's much more efficient as a way of going about it. So I shall leave you with those thoughts.